Power rates are set to go up this month, an added burden to consumers struggling to cope with high fuel prices. Good morning, I'm Gerg Cahiles sitting in for Attorney Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. Power distributor Meralco's rates are set to go up by 53 centavos per kilowatt hour this month. For households consuming 200 kilowatt hours, this could translate to an additional 107 pesos. Various groups are calling on the Energy Regulatory Commission to suspend power disconnections and allow staggered payments. How else can the government help consumers who are trying to cope with high fuel and other rising costs? We'll try to answer this and more. We'll be speaking with Gerry Arances. He's a convener of Power for People Coalition. Good morning.
Good morning, George, and good morning to the televiewers of Bilyonaryo.
All right. Kaya pa ba? And how much can consumers bear at this point?
Siguro ang pinakamagandang kumbaga parang take off on this question is I saw a driver that was interviewed a few days ago.
Yes.
That he was crying, right? 300 pesos na lang yung nauuwi niya. And the forecast for the power increase ay hindi pa
nadadagdag.
at hindi pa nadadagdag. And the estimates that we have for the impacts at the bare minimum nitong crisis na ito is around 5 pesos per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
So, yung 53 cents na to is just a start, really. Of course, iba-iba yan sa iba't ibang lugar sa buong bansa, no? And taking into account that since this administration assumed office in 2022, ang backdraft nun ay yung Ukraine war, there has been 4 pesos per kilowatt hour of increase during the whole duration na.
From 2022 up to April. Kasama
yes,
yung April. Okay.
Yes. So, medyo mabigat na yun.
Okay.
And pag dumagdag yung ganong forecast, kahit ito lang na 53 cents, masyado na mabigat yun.
Okay.
And the Philippine government needs to really intervene and use the emergency powers that were given already.
Sige, pag-usapan natin yan. But anyway, I was computing earlier, binanggit ko nga sa iyo kanina off-air, that from February, this is the third increase for this year. So, total is around 1 peso 40 centavos per kilowatt hour yung Meralco power hikes. And that's a lot.
Definitely.
For a regular consumer.
Yes, definitely. So, imaginein mo yung isang family ng isang manggagawa which really averages around 100 kilowatt to 200 kilowatt. So yung 1 peso and 40 cents na yon, sobrang laki na nun kasi ano yan budget away from yung regular na kumbaga pinaglalaan nila.
Yes, basic needs.
So basic needs, baon ng anak, pagkain, so on and so forth. And then at notwithstanding yung mga previous pa.
Yes.
Right? So, and then you have all this inflationary impacts, effects ng energy crisis. And kaya nga ang lagi kong example, paano yung isang tsuper, yung family ng isang tsuper? Kasi hindi lang naman yung rising cost ng ng diesel ang haharapin niya Yung food, and inflation, and then you have the power woes na at implication. So medyo yung 140 cents as it is, mabigat na talaga yun. And yun nga yung nakakapagtaka, and we've raised this numerous times, kasi the design of the power sector is kapag, and leaving it to the market to decide and to regulate the price, right? Competition. Pag mas malaki ka, economies of scale, 8 million yung subscribers ng Meralco.
Yes.
So pag malaki ka, dapat mas mababa yung presyo ng kuryente mo. Ideally.
Oo.
But sa case ng Meralco, baliktad yung nangyayari. It's the highest right now for all distribution utilities across the country. Wow. Yung privatized Siyempre sa electric cooperatives, meron talaga mas mataas pa dyan. And we can talk about that mamaya. Pero on Meralco, per se, yun yung contradiction doon.
Oo nga.
Na dapat napapababa.
Okay. So now, your group has called on the ERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission, to ban power service disconnections while the national energy emergency is in effect. Sumagot na ba yung ERC sa inyo tungkol dito, and what is their response?
Tinitingnan ito ni current chair Juan, ano? And I think posible talaga to kasi this has been done. One, during the COVID time. Second, even initially during the Ukraine war. Kasi, syempre, extraordinary times yan eh. At kaya nga may emergency powers eh, ang government. So, dapat talaga, yun yung first na kailangan mong, kumbaga, ibigay na kaagad sa electric consumers. Lalo na dun sa mga frontliners, right? Mangingisda, magsasaka, at yung mga drivers. Kasi sila yung sobra yung effect, right? So, yan, kayang-kaya ng mga ng mga distribution utilities and electric cooperatives. So yun yung first, but it has to be coupled with other measures.
Other measures. Pero, pero Gerry, ang tanong ko, yan ba ay pwede na sa ERC level o kailangan ng Pangulo ang mag-decide on this matter na isuspend yung disconnections sa serbisyo?
Actually, ERC can do that.
Oh, okay.
ERC has done that in the past. So, kasi siya yung regulatory body eh. So, ERC can actually do that. Hindi niya na kailangang idaan yan sa mismong Pangulo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you are talking about, yung computation nyo nga, sabi mo, dahil sa oil crisis ngayon, maaaring tumaas ng 5 pesos per kilowatt hour ang halaga ng kuryente.
Yes.
And we're just starting, sabi mo.
Yes.
So how long will consumers expect the possible increases sa power rates? The entire year na ba natin ito makikita or what will happen? Anong forecast or projection ninyo?
So, sa bahagi namin, the likelihood na ito yung increase. At ito yung computation namin at the minimum.
Minimum.
At the minimum. And that is why, kung naaalala ng public natin na recently sinuspend yung WESM, yung spot market. Why? And that was a good move from the ERC. Kasi the spot market has always behaved in a way na medyo predatory pagdating sa panahon ng crisis. Oo, nangyari yan nung panahon ng COVID, nangyari din nung panahon ng nitong Ukraine war, at nangyayari yan sa panahon ng nagro-rotating brownouts. And summer season ngayon, ito yung season ng rotating brownouts.
Mas mataas ang demand sa kuryente.
In fact, may yellow alert na kahapon.
Yes, correct.
Right? Pag hindi mo kasi sinuspend, nagbe-behave yung spot market na tumataas siya pag bumababa yung supply.
So ito yung economics.
Yeah, the economics of the market. And maraming findings dyan, including us, na yung mga companies that are actually, kumbaga, may-ari ng mga power plants na nag-a-enforce shutdown, ibig sabihin, plant shutdown, sila din yung nagbebenta doon sa WESM. So may tinatawag, and these are investigations supposedly na dapat nilalabas na ng Department of Energy long before. So many times na to. Ang tawag nila doon gaming sa loob ng spot market. So that decision to actually suspend, at ang forecast nila doon ay 9 pesos per kilowatt hour. So yung 5 pesos na estimate namin,
ma-offset.
Mababa pa yun. Mababa pa yun. So, whether kumbaga, mas mataas dapat ang increase kung hindi nila sinuspend yung spot market. So, tamang move yun. Pero, would that mean wala nang increase? No.
Okay.
Kasi, may kumukuha pa rin ng kuryente at ang pinaka-source ng kuryente is imported.
Correct.
Na fossil fuel. Coal, gas, and oil. So, talagang vulnerable. So for Meralco franchise area, ang estimate namin at the minimum, 5 pesos yun per kilowatt hour. So imagine mo kung 200 ka, di 1,000 na dagdag every month.
It's difficult.
At the minimum pa yan.
Now, ERC Chairman Nino Juan said Meralco's current refund of over recoveries worth around 20 billion pesos can be returned to consumers on a shorter period. The current refund amount to around 11 centavos per kilowatt hour. If the refund period is shortened, the refund amount will be increased, or it will increase and shield consumers by tempering the potential increase for the May billing. Okay ba sa inyo to?
Yung usapin kasi ng mga refund, dapat naman talaga yan binibigay. And actually, ang submission namin sa ERC dyan, long before, na kasi nagagamit din siya ng Meralco eh. Kapag ini-staggered mo siya, ibig sabihin, nagagamit ng Meralco yon.
Yung fund?
Yung fund. So dapat yun, may interest yun. So maraming discussion and debates dyan around yung mga refunds na yan. But anyway, taking into account the crisis, dapat talaga mas shorter. Kasi, kumbaga, mas malaki kasi yung mararamdaman agad. Pero, George, ang pinaka-issue dito is, ano ba yung mas strategic na solutions? Immediate and strategic. So, kaya yung aming panawagan na sa ERC and sa government na walang putulan is the first act lang, dapat. The second act really is how do we make sure na yung pass-through na fuel cost, mainly from coal and gas. Kasi yun yung, kung Meralco franchise area, 50% ang gas, which is mainly LNG right now, and 30% ang coal, which are all imported.
Imported lahat.
Lahat yan imported.
Yes, correct.
And ang data kasi says that 17% ang increase na sa coal sa global market. At for gas, it's around 91%, a staggering LNG na 91%. So very parang susceptible and vulnerable, right? At pass-through 'yan. So kailangan may mekanismo na kailangang ma-formulate ang national government kasi ang laging formulation ay either i-subsidize or ayuda, right? Right now, predominantly mag-aayuda ka. Ang concept na pinuput forward namin, total ang sinasabi naman ng mga malalaking players at malalaking companies na kami rin ay affected at hindi namin i-maximize itong crisis na to para kami ay tumubo, right? And such is the case nung konsepto ng windfall profit. And so that's why we're putting forward an equitable sharing of the burden ng crisis na to. Ibig sabihin niyan, kailangan may equitable sharing between those that have the, kumbaga parang capability right now, which are really the billionaires na nagkukonsumo and run the power sector, and then the electric consumer. So dapat medyo equitable sharing tayo nung pinapasa na yon. Kasi the issue here is that long before, the government should have veered away from importation ng fossil fuel. At yun yung matagal na namin sinasabi. The more that you build coal plants, gas plants, the more that you are susceptible for importation. And yung international shocks, such as what is happening right now. So really, to advance, kasi yan, ₱5 at the minimum yan. Dapat may equitable sharing formula doon.
Okay.
Aside from subsidy.
Sige, pag-usapan natin yung equitable sharing na yan when at the forefront returns after a short break. Welcome back at the forefront. We continue our conversation with Gerry Arances. He's a convener of Power for People Coalition. Now, you were talking about equitable sharing earlier, no? Sabi mo, dapat itong mga mas mahihirap nating kababayan, those who are siguro struggling, lalo na ngayong crisis, ay dapat mas mabigyan ng mas magandang relief, no?
Yes.
But I'm wondering now, Gerry, kung yan para sa ating mga Meralco subscribers so dito sa Metro Manila and nearby areas, how about those consumers outside the Meralco service areas? Ano bang sitwasyon nila and mas malaki ba yung binabayaran nila ngayon? What do you think?
So una sa lahat, merong mga franchise areas outside of Meralco na umaabot hanggang 17 pesos per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Even beyond. Okay? So talagang medyo depende yan kung paano nakastructure yung sources of
Kasi ngayon yung
electricity
Meralco
nila.
around 15 lang ng content.
More or less. Okay. Halos mahabol na siya sa outside Meralco franchise area.
Yes.
Pero let's take into account yung pinakamalapit na mga lugar, which is the SPUG areas or the small island areas like Mindoro and Palawan. Ano? Yung dalawa na yan, because they are over-reliant on diesel power plants and bunker fuel, ibig sabihin oil, na is directly affected
ng crisis.
by the crisis, ay talagang tatamaan agad. And ang estimate namin, ang increase would be around 250 pesos to 3 pesos na increase. Estimate lang namin
For this month alone?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Kasi tumaas na ang diesel price tumaas na ang oil price right? So diretso talaga kaagad sa kanila yan. And the National Power Corporation, because these are subsidized, yung merong rate dyan na subsidized. At ang nagsasubsidize niyan, yung kinokolekta sa atin, sa Meralco franchise area, doon sa tinatawag sa bill natin na universal charge.
Okay.
Doon yan kinukuha.
So ibig mong sabihin, tayong mga consumers ng Meralco, we subsidize the power nung mga nasa SPUG areas.
Yes.
Okay.
And ang problem doon, dahil gumagamit sila ng diesel at bunker fuel, napakataas na ngayon. In fact, the estimate ay baka nga ilangan ang National Power Corporation ng more or less more than 40 billion by next year.
Wow.
To fund yung subsidy na yon. Ang estimate namin for this year alone at itong impact na to based on the pump price ngayon would be around 16 billion ang kailangang immobilize agad. So imaginein mo na yung mahal na kuryente lalong nagmamahal because it is imported mainly, right? At ang nagsasubsidize tayo din ng mga electric consumers dito sa Meralco franchise area. So imagine mo yung isang driver na halos hindi na magkanda-ugaga sa sobrang taas ng kanyang binibiling krudo at pag uwi niya, magmamahal yung presyo ng bilihin. And at the same time, every month, pag dumating yung bill niya, tataas yung generation charge, tataas din yung UCME na tinatawag. Ang estimate kasi namin sa UCME, around 14 cents ang itataas at the minimum.
Wow.
Based on
14 cents.
initial computation namin. To actually fork in itong impact lang ng presyo ng gumagalaw sa usapin ng diesel and bunker fuels. Right? So, ang dulo kasi talaga nito, George, pag tinignan mo ang buong bansa natin, iba-ibang itsura. Pero largely, the problem is that the whole power sector is over-reliant on imported coal, oil, and gas.
Okay.
That's really the bottom line of the issue here.
No, talking about that, kasi syempre, primarily, sabi mo nga, imported, yung pinanggagalingan or yung para maka-generate tayo ng energy. Pangalawa, we have our natural gas, Malambaya is another source. And we also have renewable energy. Pero nasa tamang direction ba tayo para mawala yung sinasabi mong over-reliance sa imported sources ng enerhiya ng bansa?
So ang quick answer to that, supposedly dapat. Because we have the law, the renewable energy law. We also have preference for domestic na mga resources, na sa mga batas din yan. And the policies are in place. So like the green energy auction, nandiyan na yan. Around 21 gigawatts nga ang na-approve for based on renewable energy na dapat pumapasok na ngayon. And that's why the Department of Energy announced na may papasok next month, ngayong May, na around 1,400 megawatts na renewable energy. Pag tinignan mo sa buong bansa, ang behavior, ngayon at this point, the only thing that's cautioning ng sobrang laki ng pag-increase are the renewable energy sources. Kasi hindi siya tumataas .
Correct.
Constant lang siya . Right? Straight price siya . Kasi you do not need imported fossil fuel para paganahin yon. The sun is there, the wind is there, geothermal is there, so on and so forth, right? So, hindi mo kailangan mo lang ng battery, right? Para i-store. Kapag panahon na wala yung source na yon, kaya mo siyang i-deploy. So, technically,
dapat.
Nandyan na lahat. But we are worried at this point, at nauulit-ulit ang history . Nung panahon ng Ukraine War, ang reflective of that is that we are so vulnerable to outside na shocks, right? Pero nung time na yun, pinush ang gas development law.
Yeah.
Kung hindi nanalo yung mga senador na nagsasabi na hindi tayo dapat nagpo-promote ng LNG, ng liquefied natural gas, malamang sa malamang sobra tayong vulnerable ngayon.
Yeah.
Kasi 91% ang increase nun eh. Right? So, may mga naganap sa history natin that should have prompted us really already. Right? So that you can right now we're prompted again. Unfortunately,
Mabagal kumilos.
hindi lang mabagal eh. At kaya worried kami dito sa track ng national government. The DepDep, one of their proposal, si Secretary Balisacan, I don't know where he's coming from, is to lift the coal moratorium.
Yes.
Coal has increased by 17% because of the energy crisis. If you look at the behavior ng renewable energy, kasi ang question lagi is renewable energy capable? It's a very Jurassic argument.
Yeah.
Kasi technically and technologically, the solutions are already there. Right? 24/7, this year lang may in-announce sa 24/7 na solar farm. And a lot of households could attest, kapag may battery sila, they can actually go off-grid, even within the Meralco franchise area. So technically, technologically, solar and wind can actually already be base load power, including, notwithstanding, may mga base load power tayo. Geothermal is a base load power. Hydro is a base load power. Hindi lang fossil fuel ang base load power.
So, ang dami naman sources.
Dami naman.
Pero speaking of, nire-revive na naman yung usapin ng nuclear, which could be the cheapest. Pero what's your point? Siguro mabilisan. Should we start discussing that?
Kung ang formulation is that nuclear can be a solution immediately, of course not. Right? It takes years. Actually, ang minimum dyan, 10 years to actually establish a nuclear power plant. Secondly, the potential for renewable energy is around 1,200 gigawatts. We are just 30 gigawatts, the whole capacity ng bansa natin. So, the amount of potential is just way above para mag-veer away ka
from that idea.
Nuclear.
Okay.
And then, at present, may approved na 21 gigawatts na renewable energy na kayang, that's how many percentage of the current capacity already? More than 50%.
Kumbaga, hindi na kailangan.
Definitely hindi kailangan.
Now, the Camago 3 well from the Malampaya Phase 4 development is expected to deliver gas by the fourth quarter of this year. Do you think this can help bring down power rates?
If I compare domestic gas versus LNG, definitely, because LNG has to be converted from gas form to liquid form, and then has to be transported na sobrang layo.
Malayo ang pinanggagalingan.
Kaya talagang sobrang mahal niyan. So if you compare the pricing between natural gas, domestic gas, and LNG, definitely dapat hindi na natin pinromote yung LNG na yan. Because that would mean disaster economically for the Philippines. And that is what is happening right now. But ang point namin dito, natural gas is also pegged at the international price. Okay? So if you compare it with, let's say, solar PV system, right now, it's around 4 pesos to 5 pesos. Hindi yun gumagalaw. Right? Hindi yun gumagalaw.
Okay.
So, gas, even domestic gas, can actually rise. So, even before we imported LNG 2 years ago, 3 years ago, tumataas ang gas natin, pricing. Why? Because it is pegged at the international
That's a problem, kasi talagang
market
nakapeg
price.
siya sa international
Yes.
prices. Now, Gerry, I wish we could tackle a lot of things about power and energy kasi nga talagang importante ito sa atin, but unfortunately we don't have much time. But anyway, thank you very much for your time, Gerry, for joining us this morning. I hope we can see you again next time.
Thank you rin, George. At really good to be here.
All right. Filipinos are already struggling to make ends meet, now face rising fuel prices driven by tensions in the Middle East. But the impact doesn't end there. Higher fuel costs could mean more expensive basic goods and even higher electricity rates. So the question is, How much more can consumers bear? The Philippines has long had some of the highest power rates in ASEAN region. Can we finally change that? And does the government have a clear plan to bring real relief? Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Always stay at the forefront.